Oh, good morning, everyone. Please welcome Barbara and Vishwasrao from Wolters Kluwer to discuss how they built FHIR Sandbox for real-world success.
Thank you. Hi, and welcome to this fantastic room. Isn't it great? Thanks so much for coming to our community talk. Simulate, test, deploy, and thrive, how we built a FHIR Sandbox for real-world success. We're going to share our experiences today on how we create a FHIR Sandbox that enables us to simulate data, test and deploy our applications, and thrive by supporting our customers. Who are we? We're both from Wolters Kluwer. We are based just outside Boston. Our office is in Waltham, Massachusetts. And actually, for both of us, this is our first time in first time in Minneapolis. I'm Barbara Atkins, a senior product software engineer at Wolters Kluwer, and my colleague.
Hi, this is Vishwasrao Salunkhe. I also work as a senior product software engineer at Wolters Kluwer with Barb.
A bit of background about Wolters Kluwer Health. We provide a wide variety of content for clinicians and patients, including our clinical reference product UpToDate and our UpToDate patient engagement product for patient education materials. Our goal is to transform healthcare by delivering trusted and evidence-based content and recommendations to those who need it. On our team, we've built a platform to simplify EHR integration and allows us to host and launch our Smarter and FHIR and CDS Hooks services. The platform takes care of key details like authorization, FHIR data retrieval and validation, and a clinical rules engine that recommends content based on the patient's data. I'd like to start with a question. And I think I might know the answer, have a sense of the answer. How many of you have used Logica Sandbox to do Smart and FHIR or CDS Hooks services, or maybe contributed to Logica Sandbox? Yep, great. Like many of you, we use the Logica Sandbox, and it was absolutely critical in our integrated products journey. It's a great environment for us to build out our products before we bring them to test with the customers and their EHRs, and it's allowed us to bootstrap new features and capabilities really quickly. We've used it in our development and testing, both manual and automated, for our Smart and FHIR and CDS Hooks services. We also use a patient data manager with our clinical informaticists to build test patients, to test out our various data scenarios. And finally, we use the EHR simulator when we're showing products to customers. However, like some of you, maybe in this room right now, have had some challenges with the Logica Sandbox, the hosted Logica Sandbox. There's a periodic instability in the environment, such that the sandbox is not available or patient data was missing. And there wasn't support when we had issues, so it was a blocker for our development during those times. And of course, the largest issue is that the Logica Sandbox is no longer officially supported, and in May 2024, retirement was announced by Logica in HL7. So we knew we needed to act to have more control over our infrastructure and our environment. One alternative was the Sandbox Community Edition, which was announced earlier this year by HL7. We participated in the call about the Sandbox, which makes components available in a community-driven project, which is fantastic. But based on our team's review of the information, our conclusion was the approach wouldn't meet our needs. The crowdsourced components that are available, but wouldn't meet our needs without additional customization. And we, as we studied it, we found it would take a large effort, would be required to get these components built back up to the Logica Sandbox functionality that we relied on, that I talked about. Given the effort required to set up these components, our team decided to build something that better meet our needs. So our solution was to build build our own FHIR sandbox known as the Wolters Kluwer FHIR Sandbox, or WK FHIR Sandbox. Kind of the cornerstone of this sandbox was to reuse open source components like FHIR to host patient data, and Cynthia to provide synthetic data to meet our needs. In addition, we took great advantage of existing infrastructure and security that we had already in place at Wolters Kluwer, including AWS and Azure. The benefit of this approach is that we minimize the external dependencies, and we have full control over the environment. So first, as a test of this environment, we started with building out Smart on FHIR launches, and once we had that, then they added in the ability to do document write back. We integrated this WK sandbox into our sandbox UI that we kind of use for our own use, which we use for customer configuration and testing. And as I mentioned, we use a lot of simulated data with Cynthia to be able to do different kinds of testing for different patient profiles for our apps. So after that initial success, we were able to build out the components we needed to support our customers. So including CDS hooks, patient data manager, and EHR simulator. So those components that we had relied on in the Logica sandbox. So we've created a sandbox where we have full control of the features, the customization, and the scaling. We have support for daily performance and smoke tests, and we have the ability to continue to deliver for our customers. Next up, I'm going to have Vishwas talk a little more about the architecture and give a demo. Excuse me.
Thank you, Barb. As Barb discussed the role of Logica Sandbox in our integrated product journey, the challenges we faced, and the solution we implemented. Now, I will give the overview of high-level architecture of our sandbox and showcase some of the core features. On the slide, you can see the simplified architecture of the sandbox, starting from the very left, where users are interacting with the sandbox using sandbox UI. On the very right, we have FHIR server running in containers in ECS cluster. The server uses Postgres RDS database to store data, which includes thousands of patient records generated using Cynthia. In the middle, we use serverless technologies such as AWS Lambda to provide common functionalities needed for Smart on FHIR flow, which includes authorization code flow, access token code flow. Smart on FHIR launch context details such as patient, practitioner encounters are stored in a database, in this case, DynamoDB. API gateway serves as a single entry point for all the requests, which ensure every request is authenticated based on the access token provided. This architecture allows us to efficiently manage the sandbox and scale the sandbox for our needs, which provides a robust and secure environment for developing and testing Smart on FHIR applications. Now, I will demonstrate some of the capabilities of our sandbox, which includes Smart on FHIR application, patient data manager, and CDS hooks. To begin with, I will log in to the sandbox using single sign-on with my Wolters Kluwer credentials. Once logged in, let's navigate to the server details page. Here you can see server's metadata endpoint, underlying software it is using, which is FHIR, its version, and the FHIR version it is running with. In a below table, we see list of FHIR resources. So our sandbox contains around 3,000 patient resources, 680,000 observation resources, 136,000 procedure resources, and around 90,000 encounter resources. Our dataset includes a wide variety of patient records. Some patients are very small, maybe just 10 to 20 resources, whereas others are having thousands of resources. This variation allows us to do robust performance tests to make sure our platform handles diverse data requests. Now, let's see one of our Smart on FHIR applications. We see different applications hosted on our platform. Now, I will launch one of our Smart on FHIR application, which is up-to-date patient engagement application. I'll select the practitioner, and I can search with particular patient which I want to use. Then select one of the encounter, and for this demo, I will just use the development environment where everything is running locally. Now, app will go through the different Smart on FHIR flow like app init, authorization code flow, access token code flow. Once completed, app will launch. Upon successful launch, you will see recommended patient engagement content based on that clinical data. So behind the scene, app actually gets different FHIR resources for that particular patient, like patient demographics, conditions, medications, procedures, etc. And based on that, it provides the patient engagement content. As a clinician, I can preview that content before I assign it to the patient. I can actually print the content for the patient to just hit hand it out. I can assign it to the patient. Once the assignment is done, we create a document reference resource back into EHR and sends notifications to the patient. This is a very powerful tool for enhancing patient engagement. This was one of the Smart on FHIR application. Now, on a daily basis, our users, maybe informatics team or app development team, needs to make updates to the patient's data for their testing needs, which includes just updating patient demographics, right? Or reviewing its different FHIR resources for a particular patient. We use another open source tool, PDM, Patient Data Manager, for that. Let's see PDM in action. So I will launch PDM as another Smart on FHIR application. Here, once the application is launched, you can see patient details on the screen with the PDM. Here, as a user, actually I can see different demographics for that particular patient. Or I can basically see number of resources for that particular patient. Let's say we go to immunization. I can click on one of the immunization, which actually shows some of the attributes for that immunization record. If I want to make any changes into it for my testing purpose, right? So I can just basically select one of the options and then save it. It will actually update that specific FHIR resource into the FHIR server for us. Or I can just clone it to create another immunization record for that particular patient. Even I can just see that particular immunization record as a FHIR resource in a JSON format here. Or even if you want, I can just go back and download or export the complete FHIR bundle as a transaction bundle for that particular patient. This concludes the demo of our Smart on FHIR applications using our FHIR sandbox. We see how platforms support different Smart on FHIR applications, manage patient data efficiently using Patient Data Manager. Now, coming back to lessons learned. So now we have few external dependencies. That means we have more control. We do not need to rely on external logic or sandbox to develop and test our applications. As you see, we are using serverless technologies, so we can scale our platform to support robust performance tests, not only for one application, for all the applications, to make sure that we handle diverse data requests with variation in the data for a particular application before it actually goes into the clinical use. As well as the new feature developments coming from our users, either app development team or our informatics team, we can actually incorporate those new features using our FHIR sandbox. These are our contact details. If you have any questions, doubts, you can reach out to us, and we are happy to take any questions.
Thank you. How do you do the bulk data upload, not using bulk import, but how do you upload that huge amount of data from Cynthia? I noticed you have lambdas in there. I know AWS has limits on size and amount of execution time, so you have a different pathway for that?
Yeah. So the question is, how do you use bulk data export to import those huge amount of data generated using Cynthia in a FHIR server? A good question. So basically what we did was we actually created those records using Cynthia based on our requirement from different teams, informatics team, app development team for our clinical needs. And then we actually wrote a script to import those as a FHIR bundle into FHIR server. Yeah.
Directly, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. Those Lambda functions are those custom code you wrote, or are they available open source?
Yeah, the question is the Lambda function which we have written, is it open source or it is our custom code? Currently, it is our custom code. It is basically just a wrapper like providing the common functionalities like authorization code flow and access token code flow and stuff like that. Currently, it is not open source, but we can discuss with the team and see how we can contribute back to the community those pieces.
Hi, I was wondering about how much do you use this sort of manually, like when developing apps or content, as opposed to like fully automated or headless testing? And in the latter case, once you write back a document for like a given patient, then now it's going to change the starting conditions if you were to try to iterate again. So does that become an issue?
Yeah, so the question is mostly how we are using it in a more automated way, the sandbox for developing and testing our applications. So one of the things we have is we have sandbox for manual testing where users actually can go and test their different things. But we have a daily automated test which actually connects to this FHIR server. Like for example, for any clinical testing, informatics team wants to say, hey, we have this FHIR bundle or this specific patients with this very particular SNOMED city code or RxNum codes. And if you use that one, I should get this kind of output in our rules engine, right? So we have configured those daily automated tests in every like 7 a.m. in the morning, which actually simulate those functionalities. And we use the backend applications from part of the Smart on FHIR, where there's no user interaction needed, right? So that can be run into a headless mode in the backend. It just triggers the application, provides the patient encounter practitioner details, and the app launch, it actually pulls out all the clinical data and gets the recommendations back, and it makes sure that, okay, if we have this clinical code, then I should have these recommendations coming out of it. So in an automated way, we can actually test that on a daily basis.
As we also, to add to that, we also, with the sandbox, have more capability to do kind of load tests, performance tests, which now we're kind of incorporated more into our development lifecycle. So anytime we're introducing a new feature in our products, we have these endpoints where we can kind of really stress the FHIR server and stress our platform to make sure that we're getting the same, the same response, even if we've introduced a new feature. So the combination of manual testing, daily testing, and then and an as-needed load testing.
Thank you for that demonstration.
Okay, thank you.
That's all we have.
Thanks.